Lovely. Well, thank you for coming online today, Yvette, to talk all things website and legal recruitment, which isn't necessarily the most sort of obvious pairing, but it really does make sense. So we've called this session From Tired Website to Talent Magnet, How Law Firms Attract the Best People. And bit of a subtitle is Your Bad Website Quietly Killing Your Recruitment?
I
Um,
like that.
I know it seems like a strong statement, but I don't think it's too much to say that really. So yeah, so Yvette, anyway,
No,
a
it's
little
not.
about yourself and how you've come to sort
Okay.
of,
Well,
get involved in this.
yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I've been in the web design space for about 12 years now, and I've specialised in legal. I think probably coming up to the fourth year now. It goes quickly. Um, that sort of started because I just by chance I'd worked with a couple of law firms on their website from referrals, and then I kind of got into the sort of law sphere, if you like, by connecting with a few people on LinkedIn.
Mm,
And it kind of snowballed from there, really. I found that it suited me partly because what I love about web design is the transformation. And as we'll go on to talk about, I'm sure in this, there's plenty of law firms or law firm websites out there that need that transformation because they're still looking a little bit stuck in the past, a lot of them. I mean, I think there are a lot, they're coming on a lot, but I think it's one of those things law firms are mostly so busy they don't get around to doing. And that is part of the problem rather than them not realizing that they need to. And I think the other reason I set up the firm was I think there is a lot of, especially the sort of small to medium sized firms who aren't particularly well catered for out there. There's the full agency experience,
mm,
but that tends to be a bit intimidating, I think, in some ways, and just put people off. 'Cause it can be very expensive. A lot of
mm,
agencies who do web design also do full SEO um, and Google Ads campaigns and that
mm,
sort of thing.
mm.
So there's a lot to think about and a lot to take on.
I think you worry that you can wade into something which you don't know anything about, don't you? Because it's already you think, oh, website SEO, but it sort of
Yeah.
feels like it's snowballing already, doesn't it? Which I guess is a worry as well. So.
Yeah, and I think most people, a bit like, quite often I deal with like a practice manager, for example, might be tasked with, can you sort out our firm's website? And I feel really sorry for the practice managers who get that sort of dumped in their lap, really, because it is a really important thing to do. But if you've not, if you don't know anything about websites, you don't really know who to turn to. So
Mm,
at
mm,
Beautifully Legal, we wanted to be that kind of friendly partner who's with you for to make the development of the website quite simple and easy.
mm,
We're very easy to talk to. We're not overly techy. We're not, you know, flashy design. We're just about getting something really good out there that's going to
mm, mm.
attract new clients, new instructions, and probably, well, what we're here to talk about is great new clients for your firm. But I
Mhm,
mean, it's one of those things. I think until I hadn't spent a lot of time in the past thinking about the recruitment side of it until,
mm,
we've chatted a lot about it and it's come up with a few firms recently.
mm.
But I was always focused with builds on, that client experience. But I think now more than ever, it is
Mm,
about,
mm.
what we can bring to clients, to new candidates looking for roles.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I think what I always I say it to individuals when I give careers talks, and I would say the same to a firm really is sort of you only get one chance to make a first impression and everybody Googles you. And actually the same thing goes to a law firm. So before someone goes to interview, you obviously they're going to be Googling you. They're going to be looking up, your online presence and what does that look like. Website is front and center of that. And that is the first impression of the law firm even if when they maybe it's a bit, oh yeah, we forgot to do that, but and then when you walk in the office is lovely and everyone's lovely and all, but if the website has let you down before you've got to that stage, then potentially
Mm,
people aren't even getting to the next stage. It would be the equivalent of someone having a poor CV but being wonderful in person, but without a good CV they're not going to get a foot in the door. And I
yeah,
do think that the sort of worst case scenario with a law firm, I think if your website is absent, and it it's been a while, it's probably been a couple of years since I've had a law firm with no website at all. But they do exist, the small ones, or just a
yeah,
very old, very bad website, which is going to actively turn people away. I do think you don't even know the impact of that because no one's even getting past that. So no one's even coming to your door because it's acting as a negative filter and filtering people out before they can actually see the reality because it hasn't had the input. Um, so
mm,
my thought is and it is that first impression thing. It is making sure that firms are coming across as people, want to present themselves as firms want to present themselves, and then that matching the reality when people then turn up on the door. So I think that would be from my point of view, that's what I'm looking for in a website, and I think that's what candidates need,
yeah,
to help them with that process of, selecting a firm and for a firm to have that good recruitment start.
yeah. Because it is true, we do all judge a book by its cover, and
We
I
do.
I think for me a kind of sort of litmus test, if you like, of whether a website needs work or not is that whether you're looking at law firms or any, I think if you any service you're looking for, if you click on a site and it kind of makes your heart sink, it's sort of very difficult to navigate around. Boring drab colours. I mean, law firms especially are prone to that certain blue, that certain grey, images of gavels and the scales of justice and like that.
Yeah.
Um, it just doesn't work. And I think, as you were saying, it's such a shame because I think most firms I've worked with, you can tell when you speak to the people, they're so excellent and so passionate about what they do, so hardworking, and actually that shows really a lot in reviews, of course, at Google reviews, etc.
Mm,
And then you think, oh my God, why aren't you showing your brilliant self to the world? You know, I think people forget about the site and they don't realize how brilliant they could actually look and
mm,
how it can change their fortunes in terms of new
mm,
instructions and actually attracting really good candidates.
mm. So what would you see then as like the things which people are really falling down on? I mean, I think we do have to put the gavels and the scales of justice in there, don't we? Because those
That's for
pictures.
one for room 101.
That is, yeah, we should do a room 101. What another
Yeah.
couple of things that you see? I suppose you said the color scheme then is another key one. What other things really
The
kind of
color
like,
scheme, I think fonts are quite a big one. I think if you see things like Arial and Times New Roman,
mm,
um, there is, you know, fonts do date a lot. I mean, they're classic ones which were on all the sites. When the website first came along, when the internet first came along, and then even sites that I built probably 10 years ago, there's fonts I used then, which Railway, Montserrat, things like that, and they already date sites for me. It's like, no, that just looks like a 10 years
mm,
ago
mm,
site. And I think, I know the names of the fonts. Of course, most people won't, but it's a bit like when we look at something that's AI generated these days. We've got that antennae for things like that of
mm,
just whether it's an up-to-date firm. Um, so yeah, so fonts, colours. I think another turn off for candidates and new clients alike is just huge amounts of block text,
sure, yeah,
and also the tone of that text as well, the tone of the copy and the messaging. It's too much about, we were established in 1875. You still do see a lot of that about. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think certainly when I'm talking to law firms about how to, on their homepage and the top part of the website, the hero image, the message they want to convey, it should be talking about what your prospective client is going through. If you're going through a difficult divorce, we can help in these ways. I mean, that's not a brilliant example, but it's that way. It's focused. It's about
Mm,
you. Like you've got somebody. If you had a client in a room, what would you say to them? I always think is a good way to look at
mm,
it to help.
mm.
And that kind of more personal focus message should appear on the homepage.
I guess it's that almost conversational tone as well, isn't it? Because that's what you're getting down to is having that conversation, building that trust with someone. It's all very personal, like you say, ultimately.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You
give them
mentioned
that flavour.
you used a term there, hero's image.
Mm.
Elaborate on that. That's clearly a
That is
website term.
just web agency speak or web design speak for the. So you have your top navigation bar, and then you'll have the next row, which is normally an image with some headline text over it, which is the eye-catching part of the website. That it can be that where someone thinks, oh yeah, this firm's really speaking to me, or whether you click away from that. So although, I mean, we'll come on to talk about things like team pages as being, especially relevant to recruitment. Again, it's that first impression when you land on a site. And I think the other thing that people forget, or maybe don't think about because they're busy, is that you're not really just in competition with other law firms for when people are looking at your site. As younger people, I think, especially, or any of us, we're all used to such refined images in social media and just visuals and um, maybe animations done really, really well.
Mm,
So a website from 15 years ago just really says something like, we haven't moved with the times. And I
mm,
think how you do one thing can be indicative of how you do everything.
mm,
If you
mm,
haven't invested in the website, what else haven't you invested in? If you're not forward thinking about the importance of things like that, what else are you not
mm.
forward thinking with? If you're not fast moving, are you going to get cases moved through your phone quickly?
Yeah,
It just gives that overall message, which, I mean, we've spoken about this before. It's one of those things that's kind of obvious, but just because it's obvious doesn't mean to say that it's actually done
sure,
all the time.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think I can think of some website. I feel like I've seen a website that was sort of, you know, a picture of the office where the office is perhaps above, a chip shop type thing, with with some weeds growing by the door, and you think, why would you put if your office is beautiful from the outside, then obviously put a picture up. But if it's
Mm,
not, then select your
mm,
imagery
don't.
accordingly. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because I think, you know, and if you're in, if your office is above a chip shop, then that's absolutely fine. Take some lovely pictures from inside,
yes,
where you can control the aesthetic sort of thing. Take
yeah,
some pictures of the sign maybe, or this sort of thing. But I do think, say, some people sort of, yeah, they just take some pictures and they just put them up without thinking. And I do think you're right that the audience, perhaps the younger audience, but I think increasingly all
all of
audiences,
us.
we're so used now to a digital interface and that quality of image coming up, um, yeah, you're looking at your friends' holiday photos and they're in a slow motion video format with,
Yeah,
music over the top and,
everything's
whatever it is,
enhanced. Yeah,
yeah, exactly, exactly. So this smooth, slick interface is becoming something which people are familiar with, and that's sort of the new standard, which I guess is what you're saying. 15 years ago, different fonts, different standards, different whatever, and it moves that quick that you do need to stay in the ballpark. You don't need to be cutting edge. You don't need to be leading the way with your website, but to stay in that accepted level of, this is a good
I,
website.
yeah,
The standards do just go up and up, don't they?
I think actually that's a great way to put it, that accepted level, because
Mm,
I don't want to scare anybody here. You're not It's not that you have to take your website to be the most world class leading website. It's not about that. It's just, and I think coming on to the idea of um, focusing a bit more on the recruitment angle, it's the feeling that website gives you as well. Is it welcoming? What does it say about the culture?
mm, mm.
Are there great team pictures there?
Yes,
Just a
yes,
few things like that. I mean, I think we're all nosy, whether we want to work for a firm or whether we're just looking at them to work with
mm,
or to instruct. We quite often have a little nosy at the team page. I know I do. Just you
definitely,
just you
definitely.
just want to
And
think,
you're actually right, because if you were instructing someone to do one matter, you would want to know the individuals behind it. If you're exploring a firm as a potential workplace, then that's not just one matter. These are people that are going to be, your new work family. You're going to be spending
exactly.
up to 8 hours a day with them 5 days a week or whatever it might be. So you do want to see the people behind it, don't you? I mean, I
Yeah,
think that those, when people are researching firms, if you're a potential recruit and you're going to interview, you're looking at a firm, or say even before then, you're thinking, because in my world, I might say, oh, what about this firm, and this firm? Have a little look at them. Let me know what you think. And so they're going to go off and do their research. I would imagine first off, they're going to look at the homepage. What's the
yeah,
sort of general messaging? Then I suspect they're going to look at their area of law, to see how that marries with the work they've done, and then they're going to look at the people behind it. And I think that the pictures of people pictures of people are so important, because
yeah.
if you can't see welcoming, friendly faces, I mean, as a client, it would be putting you off, but as a potential employee, I think it would just, who are these people? These mystery, when you have the cutout of the people, picture coming soon.
We've
I
seen some really funny ones, haven't we? Which I haven't brought along today to share because it's, they're still live websites. But yeah, there was one classic one where maybe I blame the photographer, I think, but they all had fairly rictus matching grins,
right.
which they're tried, but you do need to. I mean, it's a wonderful investment to bring in a photographer, which isn't a huge expense, but I think it really does do
Mm,
wonders. And yeah, so you need some smiling pictures. And I think even better, so you're not reliant on stock imagery on the website too much you could get photographers these days. I've done that with a few firms, and I've kind of liaised with the photographer to say, well, let's have a sort of setup of, like a conversation between two people, whether they're having coffee or having a bit of a laugh. I
mm.
mean, not the corny ones pushing colleagues around laughing in a chair, but you get the general
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it just goes such a long way. It's
Mm, mm.
because what you don't want to see is Mr. Mr. St. John Smythe with his half-rimmed gold-rimmed glasses and pinstripe suits and
Peering at you
looking
over the
fierce. And so
yeah.
yeah, I mean that's such a simple one. But I mean, have you had many candidates who you get the impression they've been put off by the website?
Um, I mean, I think I don't know that I have had candidates definitely say that to me. I mean, I obviously do select to an extent firms that I work with as well. And like I say, I have had firms in the past with no website at all. And I think I can't begin to market you, if you know what I mean. Um, I think you're probably better off as well have, if a website, I think I have advised firms where their website has been, oh yes, that's one we need to change, and I would say, right, well, for now, let's put up a holding something to say that you're, because nobody's there anymore. Oh, we're not even in that office. Areas of law have changed. It's like it's not helping you at all. It's if
No.
it's one of those things, I think. It's almost like if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything. It's that sort of, if you can't present it simply and nicely, then sort of don't present it at all. But rather than remove the website, put up a very basic holding page with something saying that it is coming soon, but also prioritize it actually coming soon. Because I do think, like you say, I totally understand that law firms are so busy, and it is the poor practice manager that has
Yeah.
another project that's just the website to deal with. Um, but I do think it's like all these things. In fact, recruitment is the same. If you're doing it as a project, then commit to it, get some timeliness on it, get some priority on it, and get it done, so that
Mhm.
your new web designer can go in, put up something basic saying coming soon, and then in a matter of weeks, ideally, months perhaps, there's the new website, but no longer than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those coming soon pages can end up being on there for a year
Yeah,
or two, can't they? So,
exactly that.
whereas really for a sort of 5, 6 page website, which is enough for some small firms,
Mm,
startups,
mm,
you should be able to go live with a site like that in, 4 to 6 weeks. And
mm,
that's with collecting copy, images, um, and some, getting the messaging on the site right.
mm,
It's quite
mm.
possible to do that.
Do you find that some firms can get hung up on the wording of websites? Because I know some websites can lean into, the legalese and the technicality too much. Do you find that law firms are receptive to kind of getting that text amended and
I
client
think
client and person friendly rather than sort of legal focused?
I think that's a really good question, and I think a lot of it depends on where they are in their journey. I think for startup law firms, perhaps where there's say one one to three people in the practice, they we put the emphasis on getting that live, and I think they're just so happy to have a website and say, this is what we do,
Mm,
these
mm,
are this is who you'll be working with, and keep it fairly simple. But it's almost more interesting working with people who are, or firms who've been around the block, as it were, for a few years, and they kind of know who they are now. Because I think when we start off, there's that feeling like, oh, I need to look a bit like this firm to look professional and have credibility.
sure.
But once you get confidence and you can be, if you've sort of dreamt of the kind of firm you want to set up, and what your culture is going to be, you can expand on that, I think, in that second iteration of your website. And
Mm,
that's where we do a lot more work with, like, I work with two main copywriting experts, one who does more edgy copywriting for more of your, you know, punk lawyer vibe. Punk's probably a bit strong, but you know what I mean, compared to
sure.
some people want something a
Maverick,
lot
shall
more,
we say
yeah,
Maverick?
maverick. um, and then someone else who I would always recommend for more traditional copywriting. And by traditional, I don't mean bland, but
Mm,
just something. Again, it just so depends on the firm, what they're comfortable with. I do find the more difficult firms to work with are do tend to be more established firms who have been slower at doing anything with their website, because they'll tend to get all of the partners to look at it and be, yeah, nitpicking over, it could be a color or a piece of copy,
mm,
or you have to try and sort of move that process on a bit. And a
mm,
copywriter is actually a really good way to say, well, let's just outsource this. I mean, what's great actually is working with companies or firms who are very busy, they're doing well, they recognize us as professionals and also the people we work with. And,
mm,
you're the marketing people or website people, you know what we need to say. This is our firm's ethos. Now create something with that. Um,
yeah.
which is, that's the kind of that's the dream client for us because
Well, and I would say this is the thing because that have getting that tone and understanding that marketing piece, it's not just text on a website to explain what we do. That would be like a CV as a CV that just explains my career. That's a part of it, yes, but we actually need to we need it to do a job, and that's what you're
yes,
doing, isn't it? Is making sure it's actually doing the job that's required, not
yeah.
just existing sort of as a encyclopedia sort of thing of who you are as a firm.
Yeah, that's a classic. You can't just list out your services. Well, you can, and plenty of people do, but that is the beauty of having external people looking at your business who have got
Mm,
that marketing experience, because we will see your firm as a potential client would, or a potential candidate. And I find it really quite, that's one of the things I love looking at a firm, seeing how they appear and what their digital presence is like, then talking to, say, a couple of the partners, getting a real feel for what they need and thinking, great, you could look like this, we
mm,
could
mm,
bring all of this to life. Um, but yeah, you haven't got that outside perspective when you're. None of us have. It's a classic web
yeah.
design thing or marketing. We're all bad at doing our own copy. We're all bad at doing our own websites,
Mm, mm,
because you haven't got that. You can't step back enough,
mm,
and it's actually can be blindingly obvious, really, when you're on the outside. It's like, oh my God, you should be presenting yourself like this, not like this.
mm,
So
mm.
yeah, we can really help with that side of things, and that, yeah, that does take in copy as well. As a long reply to your original question.
No, that's fine. Well, I was going to ask kind of um, about some sort of simple, realistic sort of changes then that sort of you said about the sort of the small or the traditional law firm, things that they could sort of do in the next, in a few months as like a project to improve the website without throwing it all out and bringing it all in again. If they were just looking at their website, what would be sort of three things that they should prioritize for the recruitment piece, from a candidate's
Yeah,
point of view, do you think?
yeah. Well, I think a really a, one of the team page we've already talked about, but that is
Mm,
huge. I think if your photos are dire of your team and you wouldn't want to work with them yourself if you looked at them, just go and get some more done.
yeah.
Hire a photographer, even, well, no, I'm not going to say do it yourself. Hire a photographer because they do make you look better. Um,
Yeah.
and have team biographies of those people, perhaps with, I mean, some of them can be a bit corny, like, I, I, I don't know. It's a matter of taste whether you want to go into a little bit of personal detail about each candidate. But I think
Mm,
what can be really a more powerful way to do that bio is for them to say something about what they like about working with the firm or at that firm. That
sure.
could be really brilliant. And I
Mm,
think,
mm,
I mean, there's so many, you can take this to an nth degree and really work that up. But yeah, as you say,
mm,
some
mm.
quick things to
Well,
do.
it's one of the things that I always say to people is a good question for our interview, actually, is what is it about the firm that means you've stayed here for your career? Ask the
Yeah,
interviewer that question. So actually, by answering that on the website, that's really good
yeah,
feedback, isn't it? And a real reality, sort of, what it's like to be here in reality, which I think, that's what a candidate going to interview is trying to ascertain, is this the kind of
yes,
place they want to be? So the
yeah,
things that people working there enjoy about where they work is actually, that's great information. Um,
yeah.
So
And it can
it,
just be something really little that you pick up on. Like if you're reading somebody's experience, perhaps you're someone who's looking for a trainee role and you're very nervous. You're at that stage of your, early stage of your career where you're thinking, oh, I do need that nurturing environment.
mm,
And
mm,
just a little throwaway comment on somebody, someone's bio where they've mentioned how they were helped when they started
sure,
could
yeah,
could just chime and they think, oh yeah, this is the place for me. Or equally someone
mm,
who's
mm,
a bit further on and has got quite a lot of ambition about
mm,
becoming a partner, they could see somebody else's career progression. And
yeah,
it's, yeah, very there's just a brilliant way to do it. There's nothing
mm,
like, a
mm,
bit like when we're looking at Google reviews for things, there's no better way to make a judgment on which law
yeah.
firm you're going to go to
It,
for your
that's what I was
conveyancing, for your
thinking.
divorce. And again,
Yeah,
that's almost like kind of reviews of your company, isn't it? I hadn't
definitely.
thought of that before, but that's quite a
It is.
neat
It's an
neat
internal
analogy.
testimonial. That's what I was going to say. It's
Yes,
literally an
yes.
internal testimonial, isn't it, rather than an external one. So I think, yeah, which again, I guess that's the thing about viewing, the candidate viewing and the potential client viewing are two different people viewing the websites, aren't they, with different
Mm,
take on it, but having the same desire to feel that it's speaking to them, that it's appealing to them, that there's people there that they can get involved with and feel, bonded with and that kind of thing. So yeah,
yes. Yeah.
no, it's interesting, interesting.
Yeah,
So you mentioned LinkedIn obviously as a part of your own business and how you got into working with people and that kind of thing. How do you think that sort of the website, LinkedIn activity, recruitment, all of that, how do these things all interact, do you think, in your world?
well, it's really obvious from anyone who's spent some time in the sort of legal sphere on LinkedIn that the personal brand is becoming, or has become, a really more important part of promotion of firms
Mm,
through
mm,
those individuals, and then promoting the firms through their posts. I mean, I think a lot of people take quite a bit of pushing to get out there on LinkedIn. And again, that's totally down to, well, not totally, it's partly them, but the culture of their firm, whether they're going to be supportive and their firm feels that's a good idea to um, be out there talking about different things
mm, mm,
within the law. So, it needs to have that open culture in the firm and the trust that the individuals feel they can go and do that. But it can all feed back because again, I think especially for maybe more ambitious candidates that you see, they can, if they're looking at a law firm and they can see that some of the members are active on LinkedIn, joining in the debate, starting
mm,
debates on around different areas of law, that just puts your law firm into a whole different league, that you're one of the
mm,
leaders out
mm,
there. um, And I think, yeah, it all just feeds into each other like that and just gives that general message and sense of what a firm is like.
mm, mm. I think you're right, and I think I would say that there's some smaller firms now who are smaller in terms of Legal 500 or whatever, but actually in terms of presence and voice and personality on LinkedIn are actually huge. So I think
Yeah,
there's some real examples of things done right, where if you do get that right, then your advertising takes on a world of its own because you've got this momentum on something like LinkedIn and a presence that is way above your size and number, which is
yeah,
doing you like a real service kind of thing without,
yeah,
without pumping money into a marketing machine, by just
yes,
having
it's
that
indeed.
presence and that personal presence and branding sort of leading the charge. So,
Yeah. And you associate, if they do it really well, that individual, you associate their firm with them, and
yes.
they might be just the first person you think of for a particular
Mm,
aspect of
mm,
law. If anyone, if anyone in your network's looking for somebody, you think, oh, go to this firm. It's huge. Yeah, it's huge
yeah.
publicity machine. But yeah, like you say, without the expense, and in a bit more of a fun way than traditional
Well, yeah,
marketing.
yeah, absolutely. And
So,
I would imagine as well, it's that's how you can make it less of another task, which we haven't got time to do, and part of, everything. So it fits in a bit better to the working day and that sort of thing as well, isn't it? And is part of doing what you do to promote the brand and all that sort of thing, rather than another project that's standalone and you never quite get there, because I think that's the problem
yeah,
with marketing projects, is they're not integral to the work that you're doing, sort of thing. So
yeah, and they can easily get forgotten. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, that's fine. Um, so yeah, I think you had some examples, didn't you? I was
Oh,
trying you
yes.
what sort of things do you, because you've got some examples of sort of people that you've helped, firms that have gone from, bland to
Yes.
glowing. So
Let
let's see some
me,
real life examples of things you can show us.
okay. Let me have let me start with, oh, this is a recent site for Gorman Legal. Can I just switch over to, I've used something here actually called, I don't know if you've heard of it, Clara, the Wayback Machine. It's
Okay,
an
no, other
internet
than on a
archive.
film.
Yeah. It's an internet archive service where they take shots of, I think I've got a really old one here of
Okay.
Allen and Overy from 1997. Um,
Wow.
and it's actually, from small acorns.
Yeah.
We've all got to start somewhere. And if I what I try and do when I'm looking at my before and afters, because that is my happy place, if I've forgotten
Mm-mm.
to take a screenshot of the site in the early days, I lean on the Wayback Machine to. It's also very good for anyone listening if your website's gone down or you've lost any pages or something like that, you can often
Okay.
find what you need on here.
Mm-mm.
So this is just an example. Actually, to be fair to um, this site, I think it hasn't captured the photographs that were on here originally, but this is a site I did last year where it was fine. It's just got that typical
It's
slightly
text.
old-fashioned feel of
Yeah,
where do
yeah.
you
It's
look, the
mm,
navigation's not that clear. Again, the fonts aren't particularly interesting. The colors are quite
mm,
nice. So we did a refresh of that site with a new logo,
mm,
nice clean navigation,
mm.
and also, some aspirational or kind of not necessarily aspirational, but just nice human pictures. You
Definitely. It's
know,
got a nice movement to it as well. And I can see, yeah, the testimonials coming up at the bottom and that kind of thing. It's
yeah,
that people focus again, isn't it? I mean, it's gone from being
yes,
like, it's sort of gone from being a Word document, hasn't it, to being a
yes,
media kind of thing,
yeah,
actual kind of interactive media
yeah,
rather than a flat piece of paper with some text on it. That's great.
exactly. And I think it's so useful or such a good idea to have the reviews
Mm-mm.
from actually, to have them embedded into your website because I think we doubt what we read on the screen, don't we? More than ever
Sure.
these days. Anyone can
Mm,
write anything on their website in theory, but whether it's review solicitors or Google, these are genuine. You can find them on Google. Actually, these ones on Damien's site are showing from like 9 months ago, 10 months ago, but you can adjust that plugin and get the paid version. I'm getting technical already, aren't I?
mm.
To make sure it's showing all the latest ones.
Okay. And can you control them in terms of if you do get a particularly awkward client who's determined to sort of
Yeah.
shout bad things, is there an
Do you
element
know,
of
that's a
control?
really interesting question because I don't think with Damien, honestly, his reviews are fantastic. I don't think he's ever had, but there's normally one, isn't there? I
Sure. Yeah,
think
that's with the
I
best will in the
don't
world.
know in the paid version, but I think because it will scroll through the latest, or you'll
Mm-mm.
see all of the good ones as well. And I don't
Sure.
know about you, but I almost trust them more when because you always get one. weirdo
Yeah, well,
saying that a
you
terrible
do
service at
actually.
a restaurant, or and it's
Yeah,
that one which makes all the others more reliable.
yeah, no, that's
So
true.
another example, we did a site for Raphael Law,
Hmm.
Nadia. She's so lovely. I'll show you the original site first. Again, thanks to the Wayback Machine.
Hmm.
Now, Nadia built this site, this her firm up. I think she's got about 12 staff now, and she'd had this website for so long, and
Mm,
she didn't. I mean, again, it's that starter website that a lot of people start with, where it just looks a bit old. It doesn't fill the
mm,
screen. She didn't like it, but um, it was like, oh, can I really do a whole website?
yeah,
Who do I turn to? So we've changed that to, let me just go to, so smoother seas are on the horizon. Let's fast forward to a better future for you and your family. And it's
nice.
just a nice, fresh site, much better picture of
Mm,
Nadia. So again, nothing flashy about it, but just some pictures that are very moving. Um, it just looks the business, doesn't it? You've got
definitely, definitely.
some nice testimonials there. Let's see Nadia's team pictures. Um, I mean, Nadia looks quite, she looks a
She means
little
business in
tiny.
that one.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah. Um, so again, it's just got a little bit about each of the team
Mm,
there.
mm,
And I think is it on one part? I can't find it actually. Well, she's got some great testimonials on there as well, and somewhere on the site she has got something about her and how she set up the practice. I think her children as well, which not everybody wants to
mm,
share that much, but I
mm,
think for a family firm like that, it's perfect.
mm. Well, I
Um,
think that's the thing. I think if you're doing private client, in the broadest sense, so your wills, probate, family, individual litigation, all that sort of thing. It is very
yeah,
personal. And yeah, you see
yes,
there's a lovely example of an office picture. They obviously don't have a massive, big, showy office, but there's a picture there that looks good, and that's what they've
yes,
they've done. So
yeah.
I don't know, but I would imagine, if you pan back, they obviously don't own the whole like Victorian mansion or anything, as
No,
some
but
people
it's
do, but it still looks very nice and modern
yeah,
as
it's
a
got
as a
those
shop
nice
they've got
brick
there.
and yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, that's the
it's
thing.
just
So say it's
yeah.
you
Actually,
don't.
one thing I meant to mention earlier, which is does let firms down, and it's not their fault at all, is the Google My Business profile. Sometimes that will pick a picture for you. So even if you've
Okay.
got great photographs on your site, you might still get the one you were talking about earlier, where there's a lot of weeds and things
Right,
growing by
right.
a rusty old sign. But you can actually contact Google My Business to get that changed. But
Okay.
yeah, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, oh, there was a site I picked out that I wanted to show you as well for the kind of gold standard of, I mean, of how to use your website as a recruitment tool, which,
Mm,
we're looking at shoesmiths here. We would expect them to do it this well, and they
mm,
really have done. So you've got, yeah, talk about their insight evenings, obviously very genuine photography that shows off the team as they are. I mean, how many law firms wouldn't love to have a senior emerging talent manager? We can't all have that, but again, like, there was something about the way people spoke with honesty and with care that made me stop and think this could be the place.
yeah.
So yeah, hats off to Shoesmiths. They've done a beautiful job there, and I think they've further on in the site. I think there was some interviews with people at the firm, or how they've grown through the firm, which was
Mm, mm.
yeah,
I
really
suppose it's
good.
having
So
they've really got that emphasis as well, haven't they? Like it said, does our story speak to you? They're really talking to that individual who's looking for a job as well. So, it's getting the messaging right, isn't it? And really appealing to
yes,
your audience, reaching out specifically to that audience,
yeah,
um, which is what's so lovely about it. So yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. No, well, that's all really interesting. I think it's it's great to see examples. It's great to see what you can do. And I do think it's such an important factor from the recruitment point of view that people get it right. Um, I think it's about that, the honesty piece as well, actually building up a site around your people, what actually happens in the office, the feel of the office,
Yeah,
and the reality of who's there is so important. Whereas I think particularly I would say 10, 15 years ago, firms were definitely in danger of um, thinking, what do we need to say? Now let's say all of that on our website.
yeah,
Um,
the whole lot.
all of it,
Yeah,
and if you're not careful, every website looked the same because they were all saying the things they should say, rather
yeah,
than sort of starting sort of people first and trying to get the culture across. And I
yeah,
mean, there's so I always say this about law firms. There's as many cultures as there are different people, and that's absolutely fine. Own it, own the culture that you have, and
yeah,
present that honestly. And I think that's
yeah.
what
That's
what needs to
fantastic.
happen.
But yeah, and I think, like I was saying earlier about whether whichever stage you're at, like startup or a bit further down the line, that confidence you kind of grow into yourself, don't you? Whatever walk
Mm,
of life you're in, and as a law firm, I think especially it's first of all you don't want to stand out too much, and then you actually do because you think, yeah, I've got something
mm-mm.
brilliant to shout about. So yeah,
No, absolutely, absolutely. Evolving your website as you evolve as a firm. That's
yes,
the thing, isn't it?
yes, yeah,
Brilliant,
indeed.
brilliant. Well, lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts, sharing some examples of bits that you've done, and generally having this chat. Hopefully, it's been useful to people. But I find it fascinating because I do think it's such an integral part of things. And I think, say, researching online is a massive part of what people do before an interview, and they need to be able to find the information quickly and easily, and with a bit of personality in there so that they can make decisions. So yeah,
Uh, let's not forget about personality. That's the very distinguishing factor that can,
absolutely.
yeah, make you stand out from the crowd.
Yeah,
But thanks
yeah.
for having me. Yeah.
You, you're welcome. You're welcome. Lovely to catch up. And thanks for
Okay.
sharing your knowledge.
Well, thank you, Clara. Speak soon.